Was on unemployment. I struggled with finding purpose. I just couldn't do it no more. Started to get a little broke. Didn't know why. I didn't understand. I was pissed. The real bread, the real success, the real growth is working. YouTube, welcome to another video, man. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Jalen Fit, and make sure you like, comment, subscribe, fellas. Today we're gonna be talking about how working hard will keep you fucking broke. When I graduated high school, fellas, I really had no direction in where the fuck I was going, right? I was 260 pounds. I was fat as fuck. I was broke. I was depressed. I had no direction. I didn't have any purpose, right? And the first thing I did, because I thought it was just the right thing to do, fellas, was to go to college. So when I first graduated high school, fellas, I went to community college for about a year and a half, right? And I remember I was in community college, fellas, and I just was going through the motions. Like, I was taking these classes. I didn't really know what the fuck I wanted to do, right? I would go to these classes. I would do the work, fellas. I would get good grades. I would, do what I need to do. But there was still no, like, it didn't feel right to me, fellas. Like, it didn't feel like I was doing what the fuck I wanted to do, right? It didn't feel like I had a true direction. It felt like I was just back in high school at a bigger level. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things that I struggled with was just like finding purpose, finding what I wanted to do in life, right, fellas? And I thought that if I just worked hard enough in anything, that I would get the financial freedom. I would get the things that I wanted to get, right? And when I was in college, fellas, eventually when I went through college, COVID hit. It got to a point, fellas, to where like I just couldn't do it no more, right? Like I was skipping assignments. I wasn't turning in my work. I wasn't paying attention. And when COVID happened, we shut down. We went to all online classes, fellas. And I remember once we went to all online classes, fellas, I fucking dropped out. I quit. I stopped, right? And it was because, fellas, like I just couldn't find it in myself to continue to do some shit that I wasn't passionate about or I didn't give a fuck about. There was no ambition behind what I was doing, fellas. And I remember at the time, when I was in college, fellas, I worked a job at like a chicken joint, like a fast food restaurant, right? And I had always been working, fellas, since I was like 16, right? I had always had a job. And the reason that I always had a job, fellas, was because I was always the independent one, right? I was always the one who wanted his own money, wanted to buy his own things, wanted to buy his own car, right? The reason I was working so much in high school, fellas, is because by the time I graduated, I wanted to have my own car. That was the only thing I was really focused on, right? So I always had a job. I always was work. I would work the most hours. I would spend my weekends working double shifts, right? I remember my schedule, fellas. I would work on like a Tuesday during the week because I had school. I would work one day a week so I can just focus on my work and get it done. And then once Friday classes ended, fellas, I would go straight to work from 4 to 11. I would wake up Saturday morning. I would work a 7 to 3. I would take an hour break, and then I would work a 4 to 11. I would do that Saturday and Sunday. So I would basically put in like 35, 40 hours a week while while in school, just so I can stack bread and work my ass off so I can get what the fuck I want when I leave high school, fellas, right? And I always thought that was the way. I always thought that if I worked hard, I'm gonna get to exactly where I want to be, right? And eventually, fellas, I kept working for this chicken joint. I kept working. Eventually, I got promoted, right, to like a shift leader, and I was counting drawers and things like that, fellas. And it seemed like I was doing more and making more, but in reality, it wasn't really a big jump, right? Fellas, I think at the time when I was working at this chicken joint, I was making like $11 an hour to be like a shift leader, and that was the big thing, right? You had shift leader, and then you could go into management. And fellas, eventually, the place that I worked at shut down, right? And I ended up transferring to another place, and it shut down, right? And that's when, fellas, I kind of stopped working, right? I was on unemployment. I was, really chilling in the house because that's around the time COVID hit, fellas, and we was all getting like these unemployment COVID relief checks, right? The stimulus checks and shit like that. So, fellas, I was getting paid like $1,800 every other week to do nothing, right? And now that I'm thinking about it now, fellas, I could have took all of that money and really, really like invested it or like put it into something smart, and I would be way better off. But I didn't have the same mindset that I had now, right? And I remember it got to a point to where I was living off these stimulus checks and COVID checks for so long. I didn't have a job. I was in a relationship at the time. I was chilling. I wasn't doing nothing. I was still fat. I was still out of shape. I had gotten out of shape again, right? And the money started to get a little tight. I started to get a little broke. And eventually, fellas, I realized in 2021 I had to go back to work, right? Because I didn't have a job. I didn't have a source of income. I was literally living in my mom's house, not making nothing, not doing nothing with my life, right? So I remember I went to, I had my car at the time, and I would start driving DoorDash and Uber Eats, and I would grind that, right? Then I realized that DoorDash and Uber Eats wasn't going to get me where I needed to be financially, right? So I was like, damn, I got to get another job. Fellas, I remember my first job was like after post-COVID, I got in at a rooms to go warehouse, right? And when I got to the rooms to go warehouse, it was something I had never done before. I never worked a warehouse job. But I came in, I was like, all right, I'm gonna work my ass off. Like, I work out, I'm in the gym, this shit should be nothing, fellas. And it was the worst week and a half of my life. When I tell you, fellas, like, I was, like your biggest couch in your house, the biggest couch in your house, like putting that motherfucker on a dolly and carrying it over your shoulder on a dolly and stacking them. Imagine taking the biggest couch of your house and moving it down the stairs on a dolly 1,000 times a fucking day. When I tell you your body is battered, beat, like that was the worst feeling I've ever had in my life, right? I thought because I worked out that shit was gonna be sweet. It was not, fellas. And I hated every moment of that job. And I lasted like a week and a half. I couldn't do it. So eventually, fellas, I went back to doing what I know, which was food, right? So I went back and I started working at like a breakfast place, right? And mind you, fellas, I ain't had no experience, right? I didn't know how to flip a fucking egg, you know what I'm saying, or do any of that shit. Like, I had no experience, and the lady wasn't really even gonna hire me. The only reason she hired me, fellas, is crazy story, is because the motherfucker she wanted to hire didn't show back up. And then eventually I ended up calling her because I really needed a job. She said, come through, right? And fellas, when I got to this company, right, all I wanted to do was work my ass off and work hard, right? So that I can start making some bread and start like showing that I'm reliable, so that I can maximize my income. Even if it was, I think I was making like $13 an hour, fellas, right? And I was working hard, working hard, working hard, working hard, working hard, working hard. And eventually, fellas, I got a promotion, right? I got promoted to like a trainer and shit like that. I was still a regular worker, regular cook, but I was a trainer, right? And in the food and restaurant industry, fellas, what you got to understand is like, that's where I worked at. And in any place, there's head honchos, right? There's managers, supervisors. Then there's the motherfuckers that's under the manager, supervisors, the motherfuckers that they supervising, which is like, you a cashier or you a cook or you a server. What y'all fail to realize is like, the cooks and servers is what make the restaurant go. Because without the cooks and servers, these people can't bring in the money, right? These are the people that's working with the clientele that's coming into the business, fellas. So if they don't have those people, when they don't have reliable people when it comes to that, like, they have nothing, right? They don't have, there is no money coming in. Or if there is money coming in, they're not retaining that clientele, right? This is what make these businesses go round. So fellas, as I'm working hard and I'm working my ass off at this job, I get a promotion, right? I get promoted to a trainer. I get a little bit of a raise. I start making more bread. I'm starting to establish myself, fellas. And there was a guy who showed up. He came like a year and a half after me, right? And I remember he came in. I trained him. I took him under my wing. Everything that I had learned when the past year and a half, I taught him, right? And eventually, fellas, after training this dude, like, you know what I'm saying, he learned shit. He eventually got so good that he got on the same level as me. Like, he became a trainer too, right? And I remember, fellas, I had spent so much time like training and really taking this dude under my wing, and it seemed like some low value shit, like, oh, it's just a chicken joint, not that serious. But fellas, like, you got to understand, at that point in time, that's all I really knew, was to like work my ass off in these places, right? At that point, I didn't really know what my purpose was, what my passion was. So I just found to just work hard in doing that. And I took this guy, and he got good at it, and he got promoted. As soon as he got his promotion, he started to dwindle, fellas. He started to show up to work late. Started to show up to work drunk, hungover, show up to work high. He was doing coke in the bathroom, right? A bunch of partying, like not being reliable, not holding himself to the standard of what we held our standard to as a trainer, right? And I would get so upset, get up so mad because it feel like you put your all into somebody, fellas, and as soon as they get what they need, they just start fucking off. You know what I'm saying? It was like a slap in the face. And eventually, fellas, this dude got so bad, fellas, that he ended up losing his job. He ended up leaving, right? And I don't know how I found this shit out. I don't know who told me. I don't know how. I don't remember how I figured it out, fellas. But I ended up figuring out that the whole time that this motherfucker was here, he was making more money than me. I trained this dude. I showed this dude how to do everything he knew in that motherfucker, right? I took him under my wing, did everything, and the whole time, fellas, he was making more money than me. And I tell that story to say this, fellas, as hard as I was working, as much as he was fucking off, his checks was still bigger than mine. Now, in the moment, fellas, I didn't know why. I didn't understand. I was pissed. But I finally had to realize is the reason is he had more experience, fellas. He worked at different places before me, so he came in at a more advantage, right? So his starting pay was higher than mine. Eventually, as the raises came through, he was making more bread than me, right? But in the moment, I didn't understand that. I was pissed. I was upset. I was like, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna keep working even harder than these niggas. Fuck, right? And then I had to realize, fellas, like, me putting my energy and working that hard was keeping me fucking broke. It was keeping me in the same position. You may be a dude who thinking like, oh, if I put in enough work, if I work hard for it, it'll happen. And sometimes that shit true, fellas, but a lot of times the real bread, the real success, the real growth is working faster, not working harder. And what do I mean by working faster, fellas? Is success loves speed, right? And you gotta chase the right shit with a certain intent and a certain level of speed so that you can get what you want to get out of that shit, right? It's not about being the best, the working hard as a regular worker. It's about learning the high leverage, skillful tasks that most motherfuckers don't learn as fast as possible and get as good at it as possible that you can even teach that shit. That's how you stop being broke. That's how you maximize your income. And it's not just a food restaurant or a fucking shoe store, or if you may work a corporate job, right? The moment you learn the high leverage specialty task, right? To the point to where you can teach it, you can teach another motherfucker and show another motherfucker how to do it the right way, is the moment you start to move forward and get promotions and make more money and become more reliable and truly become valuable. And I had to learn the same thing, fellas. Like, I was in this journey of working at this spot and I wanted to become a manager, right? I wanted to be on a higher level. And I remember the big boss, like in these restaurants, you got like supervisors, and then you got the dudes that spend time out the restaurant. They're like the regional directors, right? And he would show up from time to time and he would see me work. And I was good at my job, but I had a bunch of people I was working with that wasn't good at their job. And in the food and restaurant industry, just because you're good at something doesn't mean everybody's gonna be good at it, and doesn't mean everybody's gonna thrive. You'll get in a situation where you're the only motherfucker that knows how to do everything, and you're driving yourself crazy, right? And that's what was happening when he was showing up. I was doing my thing, but everybody else was falling apart, right? Everybody else sucked. Everybody else was ass, right? And he showed up one day and he seen how bad it was. And for the time, emotionally, I was just quiet. Like whenever shit, like when we get in bad situations at work, I would just be quiet and just not really just give a fuck and not be vocal or nothing like that. Just kind of shut down. You know what I'm saying? I would still do what I need to do, but I wouldn't be trying to talk to nobody else, right? And he would see that, fellas, and he would tell my boss, like, he's not ready. He doesn't have a leader. I don't hear his voice. He's not being vocal. And in the time I was like, this dude's barely here. He doesn't see the work that I'm putting in. How could he say that about me? And I didn't understand it, fellas. I didn't understand it, right? Until finally it clicked, fellas. I had to understand that it's not about what I can do on a skill level. It's about what I can get all of these other motherfuckers in here to do on a skill level so that I can step the fuck back and learn the other shit, right? And it finally clicked, right? That I had to be more of a vocal leader. I had to be a motherfucker who specialized in getting other motherfuckers to work and getting other motherfuckers to do what I need them to do so that I can take a step back. And with that, fellas, I stopped working as hard, right? And once I learned how to do that, fellas, eventually I got promoted to a position, fellas. At the peak, I was making like $37.50 an hour. Fellas, I went from $13 an hour starting as a regular cook to $37.50 an hour traveling the world for the company. Because I took a step back and I learned how to specialize in shit that motherfuckers didn't know how to do. And I got so good at it that I can teach other motherfuckers how to do it. That's how you get yourself from being broke in any industry. Fellas, I was making $37.50 in the food and restaurant industry. That is unheard of. Unless you like own a restaurant or like you super, super high up. That's unheard of. As really a regular cook, I just specialized in a lot of shit, right? And I want to put this in perspective, fellas. Like, I want you to think of a regular family doctor. Your average doctor, you go to the urgent care, you sick or something, right? And then I want you to think about a brain surgeon, right? A brain surgeon, fellas, is going to make substantially more money than a regular family doctor. Why? Because the brain surgeons specialize in something that most motherfuckers cannot do. A brain surgeon specializes in something that actually will save a motherfucker's life. And that's actually important. Somebody with a brain issue, fellas, it's much more severe than somebody with a fucking cough or a cold and you giving them a subscription to take an antibiotic. You see what I'm saying? The brain surgeon is always going to be at the top and make the most money because their level, their knowledge is so motherfucking specialized, right? And the family doctor might go broke making a regular average wage. But the brain specialist is going to make $100K a year, $200K a year, make stupid bread. It's the same thing in every industry, fellas. And what you got to understand is success loves speed. You need to develop skills. You need to develop things in your life that is so valuable that you can charge whatever price for it because it is solving a problem that motherfuckers is dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I've learned that skill, fellas, and the skill that I've learned into getting in shape, I'm able to spread that to other men and improve their life and improve their fitness, right? Which in turn improves their level of productivity, energy at these jobs, which makes them more money, right? And all of this thing always dials back to fitness, fellas, because, bro, if you not in shape, if you like just lack energy, lack ambition, lack drive on a day-to-day basis, a lot of that's because you're out of shape. You eat like shit, right? You drink sugar, you go out to drink on the weekends, right? You involve yourself in a lot of low value shit that's keeping you fat as fuck, out of shape, right? And until you change that, like, it's so hard to like learn and specialize in these tasks, these high leverage tasks, because they take so much energy, fellas, right? Think about like if you ever playing a video game, right, and you playing a fighting game, you got like a certain level of energy or like health, right? And there's only so many blows you can take until you run out of health and you die off, right? I want you to think of that in like your daily health as you operating on a day-to-day basis. Like you start at 100 health, right? If you eat that motherfucking McDonald's Big Mac, you think you about to juice up, but you literally losing like 25% of your health because you're gonna feel like shit, right? If you sleep in, you think you gonna wake up with more health, but in reality, if you would have got in and got a workout in and cleared your mind and went in the sauna and started your day off with a physical activity and got your mind right, you would have started at a full health rather than starting as a 75% health because you groggy and tired as fucking. You just woke up and now you on your way to work, tired as hell, got to drink a coffee in the morning, right? I want you to think like every day is like you get a refresh in health. And the more you can add, the more healthy shit you can put in your body, the more activity level you have, the more healthy shit you can do on a day-to-day basis to ensure that you start with that full level of health, that is going to be the energy that you need to exercise to learn the daily skills to make yourself more money on a day-to-day basis at your job, in your business, and things like that. But it all comes back down to fitness, fellas, right? This is why I'm so passionate. I've helped multiple guys get in shape, like my brother Quan, who started with me at like 203 pounds, fat as fuck, and now he's at 216 pounds, jacked as fuck, still with abs, right? Or you got Patrick, who worked a full-time job, who worked over 60 hours a week, who lost over 40 fucking pounds, got into the best shape of his life post-relationship after he had gained a lot of weight, right? Now you know what I'm saying, he's in one of the best shapes of his life, right? Or my brother Andres, who was literally on a motherfucking hospital bed, right, before he came to me, right? Lost over 60, 70 pounds, got into the best shape of his life, and now is moving and operating, right? All of those situations and all of those experience, fellas, is motherfuckers who started with low energy, started with motherfuckers who were eating like shit, who didn't exercise a daily healthy lifestyle. Now they're prospering in their health and they're prospering in their careers. You know what I'm saying? And that's why fitness is so important, fellas. So if you a man right now, you out of shape, right? There's a link down below to book a one-on-one call with me to see if we'd be a great fit to work together. I can assure you, if you book that call, be ready to work and be ready to sacrifice everything, because I'm not just teaching you how to get in shape. I'm teaching you how to completely shift your identity, completely shift your mindset so that you can in turn make yourself more money. Because I'm all about, at the end of the day, you never want to be the jack motherfucker that's poor, and you never want to be the rich motherfucker that's fat, right? You want to check every single box, right? And I'm all about helping men checking every single fucking box, but it takes work, fellas. So if you feel like you're a great fit for the program, make sure you book the link down below, right? But that'll be the video for the day, fellas. I want y'all to understand that it's not about working hard. It's about working fast. Success, love, speed. Again, do the high leverage tasks, specialize in the high leverage tasks, and attack them on a day-to-day basis, and get so good at this shit that what you can teach other motherfuckers. You want to be always solving a fucking problem, right? That's the video for today, fellas. Again, make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Jalen Fit, and make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below what y'all want to see on the next video, man. But I'll get y'all boys in the next one.